Good morning. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Jim Goldsmith's recent legal column article that he just put out. It's the Peril of DocuSign or Electronic Signatures. So obviously we wanted to bring this up because the large majority of contracts these days are getting sent out via electronic signatures, and we really wanted to go over the importance of still explaining the documents to your clients. Uncle Tim, I know you have some thoughts on this. Do you want to start it off?
Yep. First of all, thanks for everybody jumping on. It's not going to be a real long call today. And next week, we will not be having a call, but we just wanted to talk about this email that Jim Goldsmith put out. We've brought this up many times in the past, and I think we even brought it up at the seminar we had with Jim Goldsmith recently. But is there anybody that did not see the email yesterday, first of all? If you just wave your hand to see if there's anybody that didn't read it. Okay. The email basically talked about electronic signatures on or agreements of sale, and most of the cases that he's representing today are defending agents and brokerages against buyers and sellers who claim they didn't realize what they were signing. Okay. And again, we've talked about this for years, but what he basically said in a nutshell is, if you're not spending 40 to 45 minutes explaining the contract to these people before they're signing it, that you're not doing your job, because you cannot just send it to them and expect them to sign it and expect that they're going to understand what they're signing. I know you've gone over some deal points with them, and those deal points are in the contract, but they also need to understand timelines, responsibilities, responsibilities with septic system, responsibilities with timelines, those type of things. But, I know there's a few of you on the call that I talk to on a regular basis. For instance, Kara. Kara, she assures me, and I believe her, that she has a certain spiel she goes through with every client and goes over the contract so that they can't ever say that she didn't go through the contract with them. And what he said in the agreement is, let's just make sure that when you're paraphrasing what the things say, you understand what they say, because the words change and stuff. So Kara, you do that on a regular basis. And
absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Now,
and I'm still kind of old school too, where a lot of my clients, I physically meet with them too.
Okay. So Kara or Kong, maybe you can answer this question for me. I can tell you what I used to do in the past. There's probably a simpler method, but I've never been able to find the simpler method. But I normally would send the client a copy, an email of the agreement and a DocuSign of the agreement. That way they're getting two emails from me, one from DocuSign and one from an email, so that they can pull it up, print it out, review it, or just review it on screen before they get it. And then that way, once they're aware of what they're signing, they can go into the next email for the DocuSign, open it up, and sign it at that point. Does anybody have any specific methods that they use other than sending two emails? Stacy?
I have started this last year because as you know, we had a referral come into our team from another agent out of Mechanicsburg, and that client said the exact same thing. She did not know that what she was signing, that she was signing the longevity of a year or 6 months to only work with that client or that agent. So we started doing in the system of DocuSign, you can actually add notes directly to the contract of where you want them to focus and pay attention to. So we have been adding those notes so that when they're going to initial, for example, where we say that they're going to be working directly with us, we give a little brief verbiage of, now don't forget, this is what we talked about. You will be in an exclusive relationship with us for this time period. So we have been adding those in there just to give that extra layer of understanding and communication.
Okay, good. Now, Kong or Brooks, are you familiar with this note system? And is that something we might be able to teach on a call?
I've never personally used the notes within DocuSign, but it's definitely interesting and I'll look into it, and definitely something that we could bring up as a future training session.
Okay, good. Kong, have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, I've noticed that when we first started DocuSign, it's always been there, I believe. It's something definitely you can use if you're not going to go over it with them.
Well, let me clarify. I do go over the contract with the client. Like, we talk about what is what's going to, kind of similar to what Kara had said. We review what if they are going to be signing, but as we all know, they only hear what they think they hear when we're either on the phone with them or sometimes even in person. When we send them that contract, we just give them, in the areas that are most important, that are so specific to their requirements and what it is they're signing, we just give them reminders that this is what we were discussing. This is what this means. And when they initial that note, they're saying, yep, I read this contract, I read this note, and because the note does not print on the contract that you're sending.
Okay.
Yep. One of the things in Jim's article, I believe it's like the third paragraph down, and I'll read it real quick. It's pretty short. Clients miss deadlines, or they now regret waiving inspection contingencies, fail to note that the property is enrolled in a preferential tax program, or who knows what else. Chances are that the licensee's defense is rooted in the agreement of sale. Okay, we can always say, well, it's in the contract. The agreement explains everything, and it offers more than sufficient instructions. It is 14 pages long with the guidelines too. Cautions and safeguards. If the client chooses not to read the agreement, that is one thing. If the client is not given an opportunity to review the agreement, that's another. So when you scroll through DocuSign and just click, 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 how easy is it for the client then to, after they're done, to go back and look at it or save it? Or because some people are not savvy enough to do that. It may seem easy to us, but it may not seem easy to them. And, you know, they should be getting a copy of it for their review.
Kong, do you find it beneficial to, when we send the DocuSign to the client, we also in that brief email directly to, you can send like a private email to each individual who's going to be receiving a copy of it.
Yeah.
We actually also outline, okay, this is what your contract states, so that they can like take a really quick overview of, okay, yes, this is what I'm signing. Do you find that beneficial?
Absolutely. Another thing I've been doing too, Stacey, is when I meet with clients for the first time in those buyer consults, just give them a blank copy so they can look at it. Might as well just do it then. Give them a copy and let them read it. That gives them ample time to look at it, you know.
And when you say what it states, the contract, you know, I've done that in the past too. When I send it to the next agent, I call it deal points. And when I send that email, I'll put at the top of it deal points, and then what it is, the sale price, the settlement date, you know, whether it's conventional, waiving inspections, and just go over the major deal points so that, you know, it doesn't get lost in a multiple offer situation. So go ahead, Kara.
For myself, I think it's important to schedule a time with them. So whenever I'm sending over the DocuSign, I ask them, you know, what is a good time for you? Because I want to plan and go over this with you. And that's whenever I go over that thing. So I have it open whenever they are also reviewing it.
Yep.
I just think that's important, because otherwise that's 14 pages of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, what I'm going to bring up next, I'm sure that 95% of us are all guilty and can raise our hand. How many times have you included the consumer notice and the buyer agency at the same time that you're writing the agreement of sale and all the other addendums? We're all guilty, okay? We're all guilty. We have to remember we're supposed to do that at our first substantive meeting. And we got to try to get back in practice of that, because that's something else that could be used against us in the event that something goes wrong, that we did it all at one time. So I'm just suggesting that you do that in 2 emails. You know, I have cases here that I get called upon where people have submitted an offer in a rush and never even got a consumer notice or buyer agency signed. And they're going back and doing it after the fact. We can't do that. We've got to follow the procedure. And the procedure is that the consumer notice and the agency needs to be established up front. And like the agreement of sale, care, I'm sure when you sign your buyer agency, you're explaining to the people that they're committed to you for X amount of period of time.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I say it, I tell the group, you know, we got to dummy this down, because this is something we do every day, but it's not something that our clients do every day. So I think it's very important that we say, you know, see this date right here, this is how long, like, I'm tied to you, Mr. Buyer, and you're tied to me. Now, should something happen that, you know, you're not happy with my services, please let me know first. We'll try to work it out. And if not, I'm going to let you out of the agreement if at all possible. But we try to do it that way so that they understand exactly what they've signed, because otherwise, you know, another statement or line that I say is, you know, so what this means is if you drive down the road and you see, you know, an exit sign or Prudential or whoever, you know, you call me. You don't call that agent, because remember, I work for you. I'm your buyer's agent.
And I can tell you, in the last several months, the amount of calls that I've gotten have been a lot. When somebody is working with a buyer and then they found out in the middle of the transaction that they had a buyer agency with somebody else. They had looked at a property and submitted an offer with somebody else. And again, what we typically find out is that that other agent submitted an offer for a buyer with the consumer notice, the buyer agency, and the contract all at one time. They've tied the buyer up for a year. They've never disclosed to the buyer that they did that. The deal didn't get through because there's 20 other offers. The buyer 2 months later, 3 months later, decides to work with somebody else. They find out, the agent finds out that they're working with somebody else. Maybe they got pre-approved with ABC Lender, and they told our agent that they are using ABC Lender, and ABC Lender goes and tells the first agent that got them pre-approved that, hey, by the way, your buyer just bought a house with Tim Costello. And then we find that out. And on our buyer agency, it's checked off that they're not working with somebody. And legitimately, most of these buyers didn't realize they signed something because it was never explained to them. So I'm just, you know, with Jim Goldsmith's legal column, it's not just the agreement of sale, it's the buyer agency contract. And, you know, if our company holds itself up to a higher standard of making sure that we're explaining to our buyers how long they're committed for, I think that that's a good thing. And I'm not saying you need to commit somebody to a year. I'm not saying you can commit them to a week, but you know, you got to commit them to a period of time and make sure they understand that they are committed to that period of time. Anybody else have anything they want to say with regards to the buyer agency consumer notice situation? Okay. The next thing, since we got the agreement of sale and the buyer agency consumer notices, just again, Kong, you just brought it up in his paragraph there about dates and times. And does anybody have any suggestions, tricks, or tips that they use? I know, again, what I used to do was when we're working with another agent and another agency, we're supposed to be co-broking. We're supposed to be working together. So we would say our inspection period ends on a certain date, count it out. Our negotiation period ends on a certain date, and then the termination period, the ability to terminate, is at another date. You know, like I said, with regards to dates, is there anybody else that's sending an email to the cooperating agent, making sure that you guys are both on the same page as far as when the dates are? Because there are situations happening left and right in the company and in the industry where people are backing out of transactions, and we need to make sure when they're doing it with a proper contingency and within a timely manner. So is there anybody else that has any tips or tricks on that? Brooks, anything you?
Yeah, so basically when I put a buyer under contract, and if it includes contingency dates like that, as soon as I'm processing the deal and creating my file to send to Seth, I'm also creating Google Calendar reminders and links to those contingency dates. So the important dates I just drop in my Google Calendar. That way it's on my phone and my computer and everywhere it needs to be, and it sends me reminders before they come up.
Okay. Kong, anything you do with the referencing the dates and making sure that if we're going to terminate, we terminate in a timely manner?
Yeah, I have a form, but there is a form within the zip forms from PAR that has all the deadlines you can write out, so you can send to your co-broken clients and make sure that everybody's on the same page. I'm actually trying to look it up here, so I'll see if I can find it here between now and end of the call.
Well,
Okay.
the other thing we do is every time we get one under contract, we send an email that includes everybody in that deal. So the lender, the title company, the co-broke, their transaction coordinator, whoever it is, we send the email congratulating everyone for getting it under contract. And then we actually list all of the dates within the contract and everybody's contact information so that everybody can be on the same page right out of the gate.
Good. Yep. That's a great practice to have. That way, like we said, we're cooperating with the other agent and trying to get the deal to closing. Good. Anybody else have anything with regards to dates and how they handle things? I know, for instance, I see Mr. Hubler's on the phone, but Mr. Hubler is an expert at handling multiple transactions at one time. And what he prefers, his method, is to get emails rather than text messages. It's a lot easier to track an email than it is to deal with the text messages or go back and look for them. I know for me, Bob taught me that a long time ago. And, you know, I can leave it up on my calendar. I can mark it as a favorite. I can do whatever it takes so that when I'm sitting here today, I'm constantly looking at that email. And, you know, I actually thank Bob Hubler for that, because Bob, are you there? He's been doing that for years.
Yep.
With regards to email versus text messages to for reminders. Anything you want to say on that, Bob?
I mean, I'd just like to have it tracked with the email, because like on your phone, if you delete something and if you delete the whole conversation, or if you're involved in something that comes up years down the road, how are you going to sit there and pull something back on your phone? Maybe you got a new phone, you know, even if you back it up and everything, it might be gone. But I have emails that go 10 years back in my system that I could pull up. If you're tracking everything with your communication, then you can go back and research it and pull it up. So that's what, you know, is good for me. I mean, somebody else may say, well, I can pull them all up. Well, that's fine for you, but I like to do it so my emails are searchable. Some of the text messages, you know, I'm not a pro on my phone, so I just know that I can't do a search to pull up the stuff on my text messages, but I can pull them up for, you know, property subject type or a buyer name or something. I can pull it up on my phone or on my email. So I have all that. So that's why I like to do that. So.
Okay, good. Anybody else have anything to add on that? With regard to dates and making sure we don't miss dates and timelines, it's very important right now. So let's just make sure we're up to speed and have a system. The last thing I have that I wanted to bring up is the company is creating a new office form that we will be adding to the library of our forms. This form is basically set up so that there's no misunderstandings at any point in time throughout the transaction of when we're going to co-list or be a co-buyer within the office. So the form, when you list a property, we're going to ask you if two people are listing the property for sale, we're going to ask you to fill out the form and what percentage each person gets. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? Is it 80-20? Whatever it is, we need you to fill out the form. And then who owns the buyer broker fee? You know, is that broker fee going to the lead agent, or is it going to, is it being split between the two co-agents? We just want to make sure that when we're getting to settlement, that there's no misunderstanding on any sort of verbal communication between agents with regards to co-listing or doing a co-sale within the office. So that form, again, will be finalized and submitted. And Aaron, do we have any idea how long that will take to be added to the library?
I do not as of right now.
Okay, so we'll find that out, but we will send the form out to everybody before it's added to the library. Shelley, you have a question?
Oh, no, I just,
Okay,
Tim,
yes,
the form I was talking about in zip forms is the contingency inspection checklist. So it's just, the short name of it is CC. And it's actually a checklist for inspections, mortgage app, all that good stuff, commitment date.
is that something, Colin, you can print out and send to everybody too? We'll send
Yeah.
that out today. And could you quickly explain that form again to us? Just to
Sure.
remember.
If I can share my screen real quick.
Brooks, can you make him a co-host?
Here you go.
Okay,
It's this form right here. Property execution date, settlement date, and then any additional inspections or contingencies that you need, and due date, date ordered, date delivered, and any other notes that you may have. So it's a pretty detailed form.
yeah,
So
that
forms.
actually is a real help to agents while they're processing their deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and you can
It's
doc
basically just a check sheet, yep.
Yeah, so it's in your zip forms. It's just CC, contingency inspection checklist. If you type in checklist, it'll come up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Dad, anything you want to add to the call today?
No, very detailed, you know, you've got to pay attention to these details, you know. I hear everything that everybody is doing in the modern day and age. And, you know, I used to just verify anything that was electronically done by sending them a note or an email saying, you have read this form, you understand this form, please send this back along with the executed contract. That way you have in writing, I don't know whether that's legal today, I think it still is. But if it were me, I would be requesting that that buyer sends me that note back saying that they understand and have read this form. Then there's no questions.
I wanted to add something real quick, if you don't
Yes.
mind. I use this program. I don't know if anybody else uses it. It's called Folio. Does anybody use that? Might know what it is.
Hmm.
So it's this program that once you have a deal, it's real estate centric, where you create a file and every email that comes in that has that address automatically gets copied to a folder. And so if you always put the address in the subject line, it goes in there, and it has checklists for all the parties involved: the list agent, buyer agent, lender, inspector, processor, everybody involved in the process, and everybody that sends you. It's helped me immensely because I'm extremely disorganized, and it helps me stay on track. And it's a great tool. If anybody's using it, I mean, you can comment, but I think it's a great tool. It costs a couple of bucks to renew it once a year, but for me, it's cost of doing business. It's awesome.
It's your processing system. Yep.
Exactly.
Perfect. Good. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else have anything they want to add to the call today in regards to the agreements of sale, timelines, DocuSign? Nope. Brooksy, anything else? We're not going to have a call next week, right?
Yeah, no call next week. We'll get it started again after Memorial Day, and yeah, we'll be pushing those topics out later.
And Kong, there's no training this week, right, on the advanced training system?
Correct.
Okay. And so we will be in touch. If you need us, call us, text us, email us. Thank you for getting on the call today and listening and your input, and we'll go from there. Have a great day.